there guys, it's me and Malorian, and today what we're going to be talking about is the challenge curve. Now, this was something that was actually brought up at a scout camp I just went to, where they were talking about to the kids, hey, when you're going out there and you're doing these different things, there's a challenge curve. So the idea with this is that the first portion of the curve is all about your comfort zone. This is what, if you do this, you can do this any day and just feel completely fine about whatever you're doing. It's just easy stuff you've always done. You're not really learning anything. The next part is the challenge curve. Now this is the part where it's out of your comfort zone. It's something where I don't normally do this. This is not new. This is not something I do every single day. So bring the example to the scouts, you know, like for the comfort zone, that'd be something like, well, I could spend my weekend sitting around just playing computer or watching TV or whatever. And then when you go to that challenge area, well, maybe we're going to go and make them actually go out there, go camping. Maybe to keep it the same, okay, you go and go camping, you can sleep in a lodge, that's your comfort zone. But the challenge will be, why don't you go outside? You have to build your own shelter. You have to actually sleep outside in that shelter. So that's two pieces of this important curve. But the other part that they really talked about was the last part, which was part of it that's beyond. And really the big thing here is if you went to a scout that didn't have any experience in scouting or anything like that, and you told them, all right, I'm going to leave you out here for a weekend. You're going to need to build your own shelter, find your own water, build a fire so you could actually be boiling that water, catch your own food, know how to skin that food, and then be able to cook that food too. Well, that's just way too much. They don't know how to do that. They're bound to fail. And so the important thing to do in scouting is to try and make sure you're building things up. Figure out where people's comfort zone is so you can bring them to the challenge zone. As things become more comfortable, that shifts, and now you can start taking on more things and more things. And so that's great for scouting, but I thought that this really applied very well to War Machine and the way that you could try and improve as a player. So I think the best way to look at this is in your comfort zone. This is going to be an area where, look, I can go and I can be playing against this person and maybe they're just not in the same skill zone. You know, they're a brand new player, I'm experienced, and I can smash them every single time. You know, maybe I'm an assassination player, I beat them every time by turn 3 at the latest, and it's like, okay, great, I almost don't want to go and move a lot of my things because I know I'm just going to have to repack them, and I'm just might as well be ready for the reset. You know, you can be as egotistical as you want in the way you're trying to explain this, but at the end of the day, this is a person where maybe the skill level is the fact that I can be beating that very easy, or maybe it's even just the list. It's like, yeah, I know how to answer that list. You're not a bad player, but you keep playing that same type of list, and I have the perfect counter to it. So every single time we play, I'm just going through the motions. This is the way I beat you. And the big thing to remember there is, just like in the scout example, you're not learning anything, right? If you're just going through the motions, if you do that 10 times, 20 times, whatever, you're not going to really pull anything out from that in the end. It's just like, well, okay, great. I found a way to spend some time, but I didn't really improve as a player. So as you want to get to the more challenging area, that's where you can really be trying and develop yourself as a player. So all of a sudden it's like, okay, this is a player that I can't just go through the motions. Every single time I have to watch what they're doing. I have to do careful counterplay. And then that's where you're going to really be challenge yourself to try and find ways to deal with this situation. When we were talking about this counter to that counter, well, maybe you don't have a counter developed for this list yet. It's uncomfortable. You're going into this going like, oh, I haven't beat this before. I'm not sure what's the right thing to do. But that's where you learn. When you're trying to either develop those counters when you're going to actually build your list, or maybe it's something you do inside the game. Different plays, different tactics that you're going to be deploying in order to try and counter that list, and that's how you're going to be learning against it. Or like, oh wow, I didn't know that list could assassinate in this way, guess I lose this game. But in the end of the day, whether you got a win or a loss in any one of these games didn't change anything. We're looking at the end game. We want to say, this is how good of a player I am right now, and this is how good of a player I want to be. And there's no part of that says like, well, to get to here, you had 5 losses. That doesn't matter at all. The big thing is that you learned to get to there. Now, we'll talk a little bit about this more, but I want to talk about the next area as well, which is that one where it's beyond. where what we're saying is like, well, look, if I go into this, I'm just going to be crushed and I won't know what I'm doing, so I'm not going to learn anything. So I think a good example here would be like if you took a brand new player and put them up against a WTC player, especially one that's just like, hey, look, I'm not going to help you, we're just going to play and you're just going to see how this goes. And I mean, you could kind of argue that from watching them you might learn some moves and stuff like that, but there comes to a point where, you know, it's just way too far beyond them. They're just really trying to say like, okay, I need to get into this. Oh, I'm dead. Oh boy. Okay, I didn't realize your caster did that. Okay, well maybe I'm going to go over to this. Oh, your feet pushed me away and now you won all the scenarios. Oh no. And it's just, they do have learnings, they're just extremely slight. Or maybe it's something where their positioning is just so next level that you're not really even understanding it. You're trying to understand that this unit is supposed to be countering that, but the fine craftsmanship of trying to say like, this piece will go here, I'm going to give you this piece that you come in, and then I'm going to hit you harder. You know, all those types of things. If you're not on that level and you're playing against it, you won't even notice it to learn from it. It's just something like, oh, well, geez, I lost all my guys. That's the way it went. And so, yeah, I mean, the further you get along, is a lot like I said for the scouts, the further you get along, the more it's not really that like, kind of like that dumb idiot type of voice I'm putting on there, like, oh, I didn't know that's going to happen, because you're learning more and more. But you have to realize where you are on that curve and what you should be trying to be going after. So that's the basics, but I think the next thing that you want to understand is how you can manipulate that and control that. So let's say me as a player, I am going to be into a matchup that's in my comfort zone. Look, it's either a player that has a much lower skill level, or it's a matchup that I've solved and I know how to defeat. Well, I think the real thing you should do then is identify that. And identify that if you are trying to get better as a player and don't want to get that win, do something different in that game to bring yourself out of your comfort zone. And it can be as simple as, hey, look, you're running that pairing. I have this list that's designed specifically to crush it. I'm not going to play that. I'm going to play this other one because I've actually not tried it into that matchup before, and I want to see what actually happens. And the good thing is that the more you do stuff like that, the more you're going to be prepared in the future. You might actually develop more technology in your own strategies and be like, oh wow, I didn't realize I could, from this list, it has some counter plays as well, because this piece does that. Oh, and I can actually deploy this way, and it really makes you develop as a player. When I was learning and starting to get a little bit better, one of the things I started trying to do is force myself into bad matchups. I'd be taking my ranged Legion list and be like, all right, you have Menoth Choir that's going to shut down my shooting. Great, I want to try this. I want to see how I have to play and try and take out your choir first so I can counter you after, right? This is something I'm going to try and force on myself. Now, if it's not that, if it's something else, like, look, I'm running Sloan, I know this person's not going to protect themselves, I'm probably going to kill them top or bottom of one, or not one of two, or whatever it is. The main thing is I just know I'm going to kill you. Well, you know, it sounds silly, but one of the things you might want to do is maybe you don't kill their caster. Maybe you make sure you have a full game out of this. I mean, maybe the best thing there is not to drop Sloan at all, because Sloan's not usually something you get a lot of learnings from. But maybe you tell yourself or give yourself some limitations. Look, I'm going to try and go through this without popping my feet. I'm going to try going through this without assassinating their caster. I'm going to say their caster is invincible. I'm not going to kill them. And again, you're really putting these handicaps on yourself, but I think there's two things that you have to remember. One, don't tell your opponent, because if you go into the game saying, oh, I'm so much better than you, I'm going to be better in this one by refusing to kill your caster, so do whatever you want because I'm so good, I thought it would be too easy for me. Well, that's really not going to set you up in the right spot. They might just walk away. They're like, yeah, whatever, I'm going to pack up my toys, I'm going to play against someone else who's not a jerk. So that's probably the first thing, is make sure that this is your learning, so internalize this yourself. And secondly, make sure that it is something that is going to pull you out of your comfort zone. Realize that you're doing this for a reason. You're doing this for the challenge. You're doing this for the opportunity to improve. Now, if we shift these scales to the challenge area, if the biggest thing here is just to realize what is that challenge area for you. So when you're going down, and maybe when you go to the gaming club, normally you just randomly pair. Well, if you have that one person like, oh, I hope I dodge them because I'm not really sure what I do against them, don't dodge them. Try and get them specifically. Say that, you know what, I want to play that person because I want to see how this actually goes. That would be something that actually you want to push for and you actually want to do. Arrange the game beforehand. Maybe try and do a thing where like, okay, look, I know that between these matchups, I really don't know what's going to happen. I have to really develop and learn this because if it comes up to a tournament, it's too late. I'm going to lose that game, and that's when those W's and L's actually matter. So I need to learn this game now. So, hey, Jimmy, whoever it is, are you free on Saturday? Yeah, let's come over here and we'll play a couple of games, talk through them, and we'll really learn this matchup. That's where you're going to really develop. So learn where you are and what that spot is for you and what's going to be that out of comfort area for you, and then make sure you do that. It's almost like a horror type thing where like, oh, I find this scary, and then you're having to force yourself to actually do that. If you're scared of clowns, go watch it. That's the thing you got to do if you want to get to the next level, apparently, in horror movies. Now, let's talk about that last one, the one where it's just beyond. And I think the good thing to know is when I said that there's things you might be trying to dodge, that might be there as well. So know that difference. That difference between I'm wanting to dodge this person because, ooh, I'm not really sure how this will go, it's really out of my comfort zone, to like, look, every time I play this person, I just lose. I don't even know what I could be possibly doing. This is just, I don't learn anything whenever I do it. And unfortunately, that can be a really big negative game experience for you. And so when you're going into something like that and you're trying to learn, whereas I said in the first one, you don't want to share that with your opponent, I would say in these situations, share them with your opponent. If you're going in and you're like, look, we both know that you're a better player than me, or look, we both know that your list just completely counters me. There's nothing I can do whatsoever. This is beyond my learning that I can actually take anything away from this. Try and find some way to talk to them and say that, look, we know you're going to get the W, but I'm trying to learn from this game. And if we're going to do what we normally do, I'm not going to learn. So what can you do to change this for me? And it's one of these things that's going to be really hard to say because, as far as egos go, you don't want to be like that. You don't want to be like, oh, I'm weak and you're strong. Please don't crush me so bad. But it's one of those things where if you're honest with them, a lot of players out there will honestly want to help you. When I was talking about before about like the WTC player that just crushes you, well, the thing that you have to realize is pretty much every 99% of WTC players are fantastic people that love the game and want to help you. And if you tell them like, hey, look, I know you're WTC and you could beat me by turn 3 easily, but could you not? So I can learn a few things. And what they'll probably do is like, oh yeah, absolutely. You know what? Instead of dropping this list, I'm going to drop this list here. Because they might thinking, like what I said that first one, I'm going to make this game more of a challenge for myself as well so I can develop. Or I'm going to make this so I don't just win by assassination or whatever is on their side. And as well, they're probably going to talk you through the game. They're going to be like, all right, I'm going to drop this. These are the dangers you need to watch out for. Oh, you see the way that you place those models? I can now hit you with this AoE and it's going to do a lot of damage, so make sure you're spacing out for those. Oh, remember this model has countercharge and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, this game that normally you might have just walked into and be like, oh, surprise, you lose, now you're learning, now you're developing, and that's what you're trying to get from it. So there you go, that's the challenge curve, and that's how you can try and get the most from each of those sections and try to figure out where you actually are in that. And yeah, thanks for watching. Bye.